fine-tunable will be available to be fine-tuned through NEMO. Sammy, do you want to help add color?
Yeah, I think currently NEMO support for fine-tuning for VLMs is still coming. So if you do want to fine-tune VLMs, you usually have to go through kind of the respective GitHub repositories to use the model owner's fine-tuning scripts.
But I will add that think specifically models like Vila, we're going to invest a lot of time in showing recipes on how to fine-tune them. And I would take this opportunity to mention to everyone that this is first of a series of webinars that we plan to do on VLMs and VIA. And I can assure you that fine-tuning and downloadable NIMs will be heavily covered in the next session, which we expect roughly probably in the November timeframe. Raj, more questions?
Yep. So in terms of getting access to NIMs, I would urge you to go to build.nvidia.com and just create a login. If you use your public domain for email, you might get some credits, but if you use your organization email, you will get more credits. So yeah, so it's super easy to set up. Just create an account and get started with those NIMs. I'm seeing some questions on those virtual and digital twin. So in many of our demos, we showed those digital twin. How was that virtual and digital twin environment built?
Yeah, so that virtual environment was built with NVIDIA Omniverse, and there are various assets using which we can quickly create a virtual environment. So they used a specific Omniverse collaborative robot 10 UR10 robot platform to quickly spin up that video.
And then just to add on to that, yeah, I mean, there's some questions around 3D visualization. Omniverse is one of those tools that we can, that a lot of partners and developers are using to visualize. There's another question about NIMs, speaking of 3D, to understand the 3D world. And we are coming out with 3D classification sort of detection models. And that probably we can cover more in the November timeframe.
Great. Shiva, I'm seeing some questions on VIA microservices. So how does one get access to this?
Yeah, so currently VIA is out as developer preview. You will have to apply to get access, but we pretty much give access instantaneously once you apply to this, and you can just easily start trying this out. We will, just to add, we will also be releasing a GA release sometime in November timeframe. So do look out for that, where we'll be adding those additional capabilities of graph, RAG, and CV pipelines within this to make it work for specific Q&A across long videos.
Got it. Sammy, this question is for you. In your demo, you showed that drone footage like detecting fire and smoke. So how suitable are these VLM models to use them in real-time application on drones, for example?
Yeah, I'd say they're definitely suitable. You're not going to get... the way it works right now on Jetson is you're not inferencing on every single frame. So if you have a video or a video stream with 30 frames per second, you're not giving all of that to the VLM. You're giving it a subsampled stream, so maybe 1 frame per second or 1 frame every 2 seconds. But typically that's plenty of frames per second to be able to detect things like a fire or other actions happening in the video. You don't really need to look at every single frame.
Got it.
Debraj, real quick. Debraj, just real quick, just so we don't lose people. Can you briefly explain how this webinar will be available for people after this live session?
Oh, absolutely. This webinar is recorded, and an on-demand version of this webinar will be available approximately like 1 hour after this event ends, and can be accessed using the same link. So in any case, if you missed this webinar, you can absolutely watch the recording of it. And this presentation deck will be available in the PDF version in the resources file. So you can access it there. I just want to point out some resources like web pages, some blogs and videos over here. You can check out these links here. All the reference workflows that we talked about. Again, you can directly go from here. The one that Sammy mentioned, trying those visual AI agents using NIMs, it takes only like 15 minutes to set up your visual AI agent. It's super easy to try it out. And then Shubham mentioned that you can download the VIA microservice. We have the developer preview right now. So do check it out. I'm seeing more questions on NIMs. So is there a NIM for processing PDFs, extracting text, tables, images, info from pages and documents? Yeah, absolutely. Do check out like build.nvidia.com. That's our catalog for all the NIMs that we have. We have for different domains. It can be for like speech, reading documents. Recently, we just launched Deeplot that can extract information from charts and tables.
And Debraj, I'll add really quickly that if for those of you interested in particularly PDFs, I mentioned it earlier that we are rolling these reference workflows into what we're calling NIM blueprints, and these are a much more formalized way to show you recipe. And I believe that the PDF summarization is one of our NIM blueprints. So if you just search NVIDIA NIM blueprints, it should come up with, I think there's 3 of them right now. One of them is a PDF understanding blueprint.
Shubham, in terms of for the VIA microservice, what are the option of choosing the VLM NIM and the LLM NIM?
Sure. As we mentioned, we can really plug and play any VLM or LLM. By default, in the VLM, we are currently using OpenAI model, and for the LLM, we are using a Llama 70B version NIM. But these models can also be switched over to a locally running model on your company hardware. So you can run this NIM either a hosted way or a deployed way. So in the deployed way, you can download any of these names, like the Llama 370B instruct model that we're using, and run it locally. Same goes with the VLM. You can switch it over to any OpenAI spec model, which can easily query any locally running VLM as well.
Great, thanks. I'm seeing a lot of questions on like the availability of hands-on tutorials. Sammy, you want to take that? Like, what all tutorials do we have? I think all our steps for running those reference workflows are clearly documented.
Yeah, so on our Metropolis NIM Workflows GitHub, every workflow also has a Jupyter Notebook workshop to go along with it. So that workshop kind of walks you through the full process and fully explains how to use the NIMs, what the NIM is doing, what the APIs look like, and how to actually give it your images or give it your text prompts and kind of parse those responses and build the full workflow. So those Jupyter Notebooks are a great resource for learning how to use these vision NIMs.
Got it, thanks. Shubham, what the demo that you showed for VIA microservice, what hardware is being used for the VIA microservice? And how fast is the model for analyzing a video with chunk size, let's say 20 seconds?
Sure. So VIA, as pretty much with other VLM models, can run across a set of GPUs based on your availability of hardware or on the time processing that you can get. You can either run it on A6000, A100, or H100s. The video that I showed ran on a A100. And we have seen speed up of up to 60x with a GPU cluster of 8. So with 8 H100s, a 40-minute video with a chunk size of 20 seconds can be processed in less than 1 minute.
Got it. How much GPU memory is required for the video drone demonstration you showed? This is for Sammy.
Yeah, so for the Jetson, you can run that demo with different sized VLMs. So the 13 billion parameter models work best. So for that, you need at least 16 gigabytes of memory on your Jetson. So an NX16 or AGX 32 or AGX 64 gigabyte are the recommended systems for that. You can also run it on Jetson or a Nano with 8 gigabytes of memory if you go down to the 3 billion parameter VLM model that's available.
Adam, I want to touch upon the fine tuning again. Like, how do you fine tune the VLMs? Do we have workflows for that? And if you can explain more about Nemo for that on that one.
Yeah, sure. So as we mentioned, NIMS is sort of the starting point. That's the trained model. Some NIMS are usable and 100% ready to go right out of the box. Some can be fine tuned with products or tools like Nemo. I think the best answer for this is there's going to be a lot more explanations on this. The easiest thing I think is for us to really spend a lot of time on the next webinar to talk about it. These fine-tuning capabilities will likely and increasingly be consumable through microservices as opposed to just sort of having to learn a tool. So a model will likely come almost bundled with a fine-tuning microservice that's sort of customized, bespoke for that model. But I would say more on that later, for sure.
Got it. Can I run NIMS on local and cloud-based GPUs, or it only runs on NVIDIA cloud? So like you mentioned, right now these VLM NIMs are available in preview mode. Once they are downloadable, you can deploy it anywhere you want, whether it's on your on-prem servers, cloud-based GPUs, anywhere. So our first downloadable NIM, that's Vila, it's coming up end of this month. So stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, there's a lot of questions. Okay, so Sammy, like, what are the different models that we can use in your agent workflows?
Yeah, so right now, with the VLM alert workflow, for example, it's compatible with all of the VLM NIMs. So I think we have 6 right now. So that's like Vila, Phi 3 Vision, Phi 3.5 Vision, Polygemma, Fuyu, and I think a few others. The text extraction workflow, it can also work with all of the VLM NIMs. You can use it with, so it's that 3-part workflow. So you can choose any of the VLM NIMs. For the character recognition, you can choose between OCDRNet or Florence. And then for the LLM part, you can choose any of the LLMs. And for LLMs, we have a lot available, like 20, 30 plus.
Debraj, really quickly, one question. There's a few categories of questions around licensing for NIMs. And the answer is NIMs are licensed through NVIDIA AI Enterprise. And what we will do is in the chat window somewhere, we'll provide a link to both the NVIDIA AI Enterprise site on NVIDIA.com, but also a link maybe to the pricing and licensing guidance.
Got it. And Adam, I'm seeing questions on use cases, like on what kind of use cases, like especially from city perspective, these visual AI agents can help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's fair to say that a lot of the VLMs really are you can almost think of them as augmenting humans. If we can understand and reason through what's happening, these VLMs can. So you could think of it as augmenting traditional ITS applications, identifying close calls, interactions between pedestrians and vehicles, wrong way driver. Identify when FedEx trucks go through, prioritizing emergency vehicles. So a lot of the classification and detection that we used to do with sort of more rigid tools, a lot of this can be done much more easily. It doesn't have to all be sort of we showed a lot of Q&A here with VLMs, but, and I noticed there's one question about that. We did show a lot of Q&A because that shows some of the magic of exploring just how, digging into the brain of these VLMs, because it's easier to explain that with a Q&A chat window. But Sandy showed some examples where the output of the VLM can be an alert, and that alert can be through just an API call. So Sammy showed an example where an alert triggered an API call that was a kind of a mobile device trigger. That could be a PLC trigger. That could be changing lights at an intersection. It could be automating a machinery. So yeah, there's really a lot. That's a pretty broad question, but I wanted to kind of answer kind of two things there. There's a ton of use cases. Frankly, the use cases are endless. But the power of these models, is multifold. I mean, there's really complex, nuanced understanding and reasoning, all in one model. So it can really augment kind of what we have done in the past, and these VLMs can be added to our existing applications to augment what we're already doing. And also the fact that the output of these VLMs, these agents, can be not just Q&A windows, rather the API calls to trigger if this, then that kind of scenarios.
Thanks, Adam. Sammy, a couple of questions for you. There are like hundreds of questions that are coming up, so we can do it really quick. We don't have that much time. So can we use open source VLMs, or we need to use the proprietary ones?
For the workflow specifically, they're built to work with the NVIDIA NIM VLM APIs. So in short, no.
Okay. Are there any NIMs for medical domain?
There are actually. You can find them on build.nvidia.com. I think there's a healthcare section.
Perfect. And where can we find the Jupyter notebooks of the workflows that you just showed?
Yeah, so they're all on the GitHub. So if you just Google GitHub Metropolis NIM workflows, it should come up.
And that's also, it's also on our use case page, that main use case page. Debraj, if you just go back real quick to that URL. The GitHub link is on that URL as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, all our links are on this page, so I would urge you to take a look. Okay. And these workflows are right now absolutely free for you to try it out. And the VIA microservice is also free for you to try it out. Okay. So I'm just combing through questions right now. Are there any privacy concerns for sending sensitive information for analysis on a NIM? Sammy, you want to take that?
Yeah, so right now, if you're using the preview APIs for at build.nvidia.com, it's probably best to keep any sensitive information from not sending it. But eventually, once these NIMs are downloadable, you can run it completely locally and not have to worry about any of that.
I think that's all. Like, many of them are repeats right now. So,
Raj, can you guide us on how some of the questions, because obviously there's far more questions than we can answer right now. How can we guide people on how some of these questions might be handled, either afterwards, or will we send out like an FAQ, or?
yeah, we do have forums, and all the links can be found on that page. And you can ask your questions on the forums. If you have any questions on this webinar on VLMs or visual AI agents, I would urge you to just email us at metropolis@nvidia.com. That would be the easiest. And we can go through these questions and we can reply back to them. If it's really like the questions, we can reply back to them as well.
Yeah, I think what we should probably do is actually add an FAQ to this page, because a lot of these, there's so many repeats, we've got so many questions, and there's a lot of categories. I think what we'll do is we will beef up this page that you see right now with an FAQ section to hopefully tackle a lot of this stuff. And as you can imagine, as I mentioned, this is the first in a series of webinars. This is our page where we're going to be listing and evolving and showcasing the various NIMs as they evolve. We'll announce the new, licensable, downloadable NIMs here. All of the, the GitHub repos will be evolving over time. And so, if there's one place to kind of go for a lot of the answers to the questions, this is it, and we will continue to evolve it over time.
Perfect. I think that's all. Then thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar. Again, I'd like to repeat that an on-demand version of this webinar will be available around like 1 hour after this event ends and can be accessed using the same link. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Goodbye.